My grandson's call came at exactly 5:45 in the morning, cutting through the quiet darkness of my bedroom like a knife. "Grandpa Vincent, whatever you do, don't wear your dark brown Stetson today." His voice was shaking so hard I could barely understand the words. I sat bolt upright in bed and asked, "Jasper, what's wrong? Where are you?" All he managed to say was, "Please, just trust me. You'll understand soon." And then the line went dead. At 65 years old, I had learned to wake with the sun. But this was different. This was the kind of call that makes your heart skip before you even know why. If you're watching this story, please subscribe to the channel, like button, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I walked straight to the closet and turned on the light. There on the hat rack hung my two dark brown Stetsons exactly where I had left them the night before. One was the work hat, beaten soft and stained from 40 years of Wyoming wind, dust, and cattle work. The other was my Sunday best with its polished silver concho band and the single hawk feather I had found on a hunting trip 35 years ago. Both hats had been gifts from my late wife Ellen, who always insisted a proper Wyoming rancher needed proper hats. Something in the pure terror of Jasper's voice told me not to question him this time. Instead of either Stetson, I grabbed the old gray baseball cap that hung behind the door. It felt strange on my head as I walked downstairs to start the coffee. The Vincent Ranch has been in our family for 5 generations. Homesteaded in 1888, built with sweat, blizzards, and sunrise coffee. Morning routines are sacred here, strong black coffee first, then a slow walk through the barns to check the cattle, then whatever the day demands. But today felt different from the moment I opened my eyes. That call had left an uneasiness in my chest that even the familiar smell of coffee and hay couldn't shake. As I stood on the porch watching the Wyoming sunrise paint the snowy range pink and gold, I kept replaying Jasper's words, the way his voice cracked with fear he had never shown before. By 8 o'clock I had finished chores. The cattle were fine, the barns secure, everything exactly as it should be. I had planned to drive into Cheyenne for mineral blocks and feed supplements. The same first Tuesday of the month run I had made for 22 years. Today seemed like any other day for that errand, except for the worry about my grandson that sat heavy on my heart. I climbed into my old Dodge pickup, the one that had seen better decades but still ran strong, and adjusted the rearview mirror. I caught myself reaching for the dark brown Stetson that wasn't there. The drive into Cheyenne took 40 minutes across rolling sagebrush hills dotted with cattle and the occasional pronghorn leaping the fences. I had made this trip countless times and knew every curve and landmark by heart. Cheyenne Farm and Ranch Supply sits just off I-80, a sprawling metal building where Wyoming ranchers gather to talk hay prices, drought, and whose kid just roped at the college rodeo. But when I turned into the parking lot at exactly 9 o'clock, my ordinary Tuesday morning turned into something straight out of a nightmare. Sheriff's units, state troopers, and an ambulance blocked half the lot, red and blue lights flashing against the thin February snow. Yellow crime scene tape stretched across the front doors and flapped in the cold wind. A crowd of neighbors and strangers stood staring, breath fogging in the freezing air. My stomach dropped before I even shut off the engine. I parked as close as I could and walked toward the commotion, heart racing with a dread I couldn't name. The crowd parted reluctantly as I pushed through, my rancher's instincts telling me to get closer to whatever had drawn all these people. That's when I spotted Sheriff Mike Harlan near the yellow tape, his weathered face grim as he supervised the scene. Mike and I had gone to high school together 47 years ago, back when Cheyenne was still a small cow town. "Vincent," he called out when he saw me, recognition and something else, maybe relief, in his eyes. What brings you here this morning, monthly feed run? I said, gesturing toward the store behind the tape. Mike, what in God's name happened? Before he could answer, I caught sight of a familiar figure sitting on the tailgate of a patrol truck about 20 yards away. Jasper sat hunched forward, shoulders shaking, while a young female deputy offered him tissues. The sight of my grandson in that kind of distress sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the Wyoming winter morning. That's why I'm glad you're here, Mike said quietly, following my gaze. We called Jasper about an hour ago. His number was the last one dialed on the victim's phone. Victim. The word hit me like a physical blow. Young woman, 27 or 28, Mike continued, his voice professional but heavy. Body discovered around 4 this morning by the night delivery driver. Coroner estimates time of death between midnight and 2. He watched my reaction carefully. I started walking toward Jasper, but Mike put a hand on my arm to stop me. Vincent, there's something else. Something that might explain why your grandson warned you about that hat. He led me closer to where the body had been found, though it had already been removed. What I saw made my blood run cold. Lying on the frozen ground in a clear evidence bag was a dark brown Stetson, identical to mine down to the smallest detail. The silver concho gleamed in the morning light, and I could clearly see the single hawk feather tucked into the band. That hat, I whispered, my voice barely audible. It's identical to mine. Every detail. That's exactly what Jasper said when he got here. Mike replied, broke down completely when he saw it. Jasper appeared at my elbow, eyes red-rimmed and wild with grief. Grandpa Vincent, he choked out. That was Emily Harper. She was my girlfriend. The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. Last week Lauren was in the barn, Jasper said between sobs. She had your Sunday Stetson in her hands. When I asked what she was doing, she said she needed it as a pattern to buy an identical one for Dad's birthday next month. Lauren Brooks, my daughter-in-law for the last 16 years, had taken my hat under the pretense of buying Caleb a gift. Now a young woman was dead, wearing what appeared to be an exact replica. She had access, I said, more to myself than anyone else. Mike finished the thought. And now someone is dead wearing a hat just like yours. Mike's expression darkened. Vincent, I need to ask you directly. Where were you between midnight and 2 this morning at home asleep? Alone. I answered. The implications settled over me like a heavy blanket. Mike, you can't possibly think I don't think anything yet, he cut in. But I need to understand why a murder victim was dressed to look like you and why your grandson knew enough to warn you not to wear that hat today. Jasper grabbed my arm. Grandpa, I swear I didn't know this would happen. When Emily called me last night, she sounded terrified. She said she had something important to tell me. Then the line went dead. An officer approached us holding another evidence bag. Sheriff, you need to see what was in her pocket. Mike took the bag, examined the contents, and his face turned to stone. He looked up at me with suspicion I had never seen in his eyes before. Vincent, we need to talk. The bag contained neatly folded legal documents sealed in plastic. Mike held it up to the light so I could see the letterhead and signatures through the clear material. Quitclaim deed, he said, voice flat. Transferring the Vincent Ranch to Caleb Vincent and Lauren Brooks for the sum of $1. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Dated 3 weeks ago, notarized and witnessed. Mike continued, your signature looks perfect. Vincent. My mind raced back to that Sunday dinner 3 weeks earlier. Lauren had spread papers across the kitchen table after dessert, chattering about insurance updates and tax forms. "Just sign here, Vincent," she had said with that bright, helpful smile. Boring paperwork. But it protects the family. I had signed without reading a single line, trusting her completely. "This gives your son and daughter-in-law legal ownership of a $4.8 million property," Mike said quietly. "Motive for murder if someone was trying to frame you for killing the one person who might expose the forgery." The implications crashed over me like a winter blizzard. Someone had murdered Emily Harper, dressed her to look like me, and planted evidence of a forged deed. The perfect setup to eliminate both a witness and the rightful owner in one stroke. I needed to get home. The drive back to the ranch felt like the longest 40 minutes of my life. Every familiar curve in the road looked strange, every landmark foreign. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Lauren's white Escalade sat parked near the front porch like it already belonged there. Through the kitchen window, I could see movement inside my house. I found her in my office, going through my filing cabinets with calm, methodical precision. Papers were scattered across the desk that had belonged to my grandfather, and she held a thick manila folder when I walked in. "What are you doing in my house?" I demanded. She spun around, startled, but quickly recovered her composure. "Vincent, thank goodness you're home. I was looking for documents to help you with these legal issues. Insurance papers, tax records, anything that might prove your innocence." "How did you know about legal issues?" I asked. "I just left the crime scene 20 minutes ago." Her smile faltered for just a moment. "Caleb called," she said smoothly. "He heard about the incident downtown. We're family. We stick together during crisis." I stepped closer, noting how she had positioned herself between me and my own filing cabinets. "Lauren, did you trick me into signing that quitclaim deed?" "What deed?" she replied, voice innocent. "I don't know what you're talking about." But her eyes had gone cold and calculating. The warm daughter-in-law mask was slipping, the one that transfers my ranch to you and Caleb for $1. I said, "The one they found on a murder victim who was dressed to look like me." For a long moment, we stared at each other across the desk that had belonged to 5 generations of Vincent men. "Maybe someone did you a favor," she said finally, voice dripping with casual cruelty. "This ranch is a burden you can't handle anymore. You're 65 years old, living alone, making poor decisions. Maybe it's time to let the younger generation take over." The coldness in her voice was like a slap in the face. This woman had sat at my table for 16 years, called me dad, shared every holiday and family celebration, and now she stood in my office telling me I was too old to manage my own life. The sound of an expensive engine cut through the tension. Through the window, I watched a black Mercedes pull up behind Lauren's Escalade. A man in a $3,000 suit stepped out carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most folks' monthly salary. Lauren's smile returned, sharp and confident. "Perfect timing," she said. The man who entered my office commanded attention immediately. Gregory Lang moved with practiced confidence, his tailored suit announcing money and power before he even spoke. He set his briefcase on my desk with deliberate precision. "Mr. Vincent," he began smoothly. "I'm counsel for Mrs. Lauren Brooks. There has been unfortunate confusion regarding certain legal documents and some very serious accusations against my client." "No confusion," I said. "She tricked me into signing away my ranch." Lang smiled like a shark. "That's exactly the kind of paranoid thinking that concerns us. Mrs. Brooks has filed for an emergency guardianship and competency hearing. We believe you are suffering from age-related cognitive decline affecting your judgment. He withdrew a thick folder from the briefcase. Elderly man making wild accusations about family, claiming conspiracies, exhibiting erratic behavior. The court will see a concerned daughter-in-law protecting family assets. Lauren moved beside him, her mask of concern replaced by cold calculation. We're doing this for your own good, Vincent. Additionally, Lang continued, Mrs. Brooks holds durable power of attorney executed the same day as the deed. Should the court find you incompetent, she assumes full control of your assets, medical decisions, and living arrangements. The implications hit like a physical blow. You planned this, I said. We plan to protect a vulnerable elderly man from poor decisions. Lauren replied, This ranch is worth $4.8 million. That's dangerous in the wrong hands. The front door opened, and Caleb walked in, taking in the scene with confusion and exhaustion. What's going on? He asked. Why is your lawyer here? Lauren turned to him. Your father is making serious accusations, Lang explained smoothly. We're discussing legal protection for everyone. Caleb looked between his wife and me, clearly torn. Dad, maybe we should consider it. You're getting older and this ranch is a lot of work. The betrayal from my own son cut deeper than anything Lauren had done. Lang slid more papers across the desk. $5 million defamation lawsuit. Mandatory psychiatric evaluation. Supervised living. He listed calmly. Easy way or hard way. My phone buzzed with a text I didn't recognize. Stop fighting or lose everything you love. Then another from Jasper Old Windmill North Pasture. Midnight. Remember the summer lightning fire? That was our life or death code from when he was 11. Gentlemen, this conversation is over. I said. Lang's smile never wavered. You have 48 hours to reconsider. After that, we proceed with all legal remedies to protect Mrs. Brooks's interests and ensure your proper care. As they gathered their papers, Lauren leaned close and whispered, You have no idea what you're up against, old man. But looking at Jasper's text, I understood this went far beyond property theft. My grandson was in mortal danger, and our survival depended on secrets that could only be shared under the cover of a Wyoming midnight. The old windmill stood like a skeleton against the star-filled sky, its broken blades frozen since the 1970s. I had driven the last 2 miles without headlights, following a dirt track I remembered from hunting trips 40 years ago. Jasper sat hunched on the concrete base, barely visible in the moonlight. When he heard my footsteps on the gravel, he looked up with eyes that seemed 20 years older than 19. Grandpa, he whispered, voice breaking. I think I helped get Emily killed. I sat beside him on the cold concrete, feeling the weight of whatever truth had brought us to this forsaken place. Tell me everything, I said. Jasper's words came out in ragged bursts. Emily wasn't just some girl I met at college. Tuesday night she called me around 10:30. She was excited but terrified. She said she had finally found solid evidence about something huge and had it all organized in her apartment. Evidence about what I asked. She wouldn't say over the phone, only that it involved Lauren and other people. Something about elderly property owners. Jasper wiped his eyes with his sleeve. She said she was going to confront someone the next morning with proof of everything. When the police called me about her death, I went straight to her apartment. The door was unlocked like someone had already searched it. They missed something. Behind a loose panel in her closet, she had hidden files, bank records, property transfers, death certificates, names and dates going back years. His voice grew stronger as the horror of it sank in. Margaret Ellison from Cody. an elderly widow whose ranch was transferred to a development company. Then she died in a house fire 7 months later. There were 12 names I counted, maybe more. All elderly ranch owners across Wyoming, Colorado, and South Dakota. He continued, all had their land transferred through legal documents, then died within a year. Heart attacks, accidents, house fires. My grandson pulled out a small flash drive. I copied everything before someone came back. Emily had been investigating this for almost 3 years. Grandpa Vincent. I think she discovered Lauren as part of an operation that targets elderly landowners. And you think Lauren killed her to keep it quiet, I asked. Jasper's voice dropped to a whisper. The hat. Grandpa, that's how I knew to warn you. In Emily's notes, she wrote about how they sometimes frame the victims, make it look like the elderly person committed crimes before they die or disappear. When I saw Lauren take your Sunday Stetson last week and then heard about the murder with the identical hat, everything clicked together. Lauren hadn't borrowed my hat for Caleb's birthday. She had stolen it to have an exact copy made and plant at a crime scene to frame me for murder, then have me declared incompetent. Perfect setup to eliminate the witness and the current target in one move. Jasper pressed the flash drive into my hand. Emily was smarter than they thought. She documented everything. We need to get this to Sheriff Harlan. Can we trust him? I asked. Emily's files mentioned payments to law enforcement officials. We don't know how deep this goes. The sound of multiple engines approaching made us both freeze. 4 vehicles moved slowly, without headlights. Just as I had done. But these weren't friends. They followed us, Jasper whispered. Footsteps crunched on gravel, and low voices conferred outside the windmill. Through the broken slats, I could see flashlight beams sweeping the area. Professional, methodical. These weren't amateurs. Grandpa, Jasper breathed, hand shaking as he reached into his jacket. There's something else. Emily was recording when it happened. Mr. Vincent, we know you're in there. Lauren's voice echoed through the night with the confidence of someone who believed she held every card. Jasper and I pressed ourselves against the cold concrete as footsteps approached the base of the windmill. There's nowhere to run. Vincent, Lauren called out. Come out and we can discuss this like civilized people. The windmill door creaked open and Lauren stepped inside. Flanked by 3 men. I recognized Deputy Ross Carter immediately. His uniform and badge lending false authority to what was clearly criminal business. The other 2 were strangers, large men in dark clothing who moved like hired muscle. You're trespassing on private property, Lauren announced, voice carrying across the empty space. That evidence belongs to my legal team, and you're interfering with an official investigation. Deputy Carter stepped forward, hand resting casually on his service weapon. This is official police business. You're obstructing justice by hiding evidence in a murder case. I almost laughed at the audacity. They were going to arrest us for possessing proof of their own crimes. Vincent, I know you can hear me, Lauren continued, walking deeper into the windmill. I've been planning your elimination for 2.5 years, old man. Did you really think you could outsmart an operation this sophisticated? Her confidence was staggering. Here she was, confessing to murder and conspiracy, apparently certain no one would ever hear her words. 12 properties across 3 states. Almost $65 million in development deals. Your little ranch was just the latest acquisition in a very profitable enterprise. Jasper's grip tightened on my arm as Lauren's voice grew closer. She was savoring her moment of triumph. Emily Harper was supposed to be simple. I used naive little Jasper to gather information, forge documents, arrange a convenient accident for the stubborn grandfather. Clean, efficient, profitable. But she got ambitious, didn't she? Lauren laughed, started playing detective, thinking she was smarter than people who have perfected this system for years. She threatened to destroy decades of careful work. Deputy Carter chuckled. Should have minded her own business. I had to eliminate her before she ruined everything. Lauren said matter-of-factly. The hat was perfect. Frame you for murder. Then use your obvious guilt and deteriorating mental state to justify the competency hearing. 2 problems solved with 1 solution. No witnesses this time, Carter added casually. The admission of multiple murders sent ice through my veins. These people had been killing elderly landowners for years, and law enforcement had been covering it up. You're just another greedy old fool who got in the way of progress. Lauren said, Wyoming is changing. Vincent, people like you clinging to the past, holding up development that could benefit entire communities. We're doing a service. Really. Her footsteps were getting closer. In moments, they would find us behind the old machinery. But Lauren's arrogance was about to become her downfall. I pulled out my phone, making sure the screen was clearly visible, and stood up from our hiding spot. Lauren, I said calmly, holding the phone high. I've been live streaming everything for the past 18 minutes. The windmill fell silent except for the Wyoming wind whistling through the broken blades. Lauren stared at my phone, her confident expression flickering with the first hint of uncertainty. You're lying, she said. But her voice had lost its edge. I held the phone higher, showing the active recording indicator and the viewer count climbing past 2,000. Sheriff Harlan, the Wyoming DCI, the FBI field office in Denver, and about 2,500 other people have been listening to every word you just said. Deputy Carter reached for his gun, but Lauren held up a hand to stop him. Her face had transformed completely. The mask of the polished businesswoman replaced by something cold and desperate. Nobody's that smart, she snarled, especially not some washed-up rancher who can't even manage his own affairs. Maybe not, I answered, but my grandson taught me how to use Facebook Live last Christmas. Amazing what you can learn when you're not too proud to listen to the younger generation. Lauren's facade crumbled entirely, replaced by pure rage. You have no idea what you've just done. The wail of sirens cut through the night like a cavalry charge, growing louder by the second. Through the broken slats, I could see red and blue lights painting the darkness as multiple units surrounded the windmill. This is the Wyoming State Police, a voice boomed through a megaphone. The building is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible. Lauren's face went from rage to panic in an instant. This is impossible. You're bluffing. Am I asked, holding up the phone so she could see the live stream now at over 4,000 viewers. Say hello to the internet. Lauren. The windmill doors exploded inward as state troopers poured in. Weapons drawn, tactical lights cutting through the shadows. Nobody move, the lead trooper commanded. Hands where we can see them. Deputy Carter reached for his weapon and found himself staring down half a dozen rifles. His shoulders sagged as he raised his hands in defeat. Within minutes, Lauren, Carter, and the 2 hired men were handcuffed and read their rights. As they were led away, Lauren turned back to me with pure hatred in her eyes. This isn't over, old man. You have no idea how deep this goes. But she was wrong. Over the next 72 hours, the investigation exploded beyond anything I could have imagined. The flash drive Jasper recovered contained 7 years of meticulous records that would have made a federal auditor proud. Emily Harper had documented everything: bank transfers, forged signatures, property deeds, death certificates, and most damning of all, Recorded phone conversations with Lauren planning various accidents. FBI agents arrived from Denver within hours, turning the case into a federal investigation spanning 3 states. Special Agent Sarah Mitchell briefed me personally at the sheriff's station. 12 confirmed victims across Wyoming, Colorado, and South Dakota. She said, spreading photographs across the table. Elderly landowners, all with valuable property, all dead within months of signing transfer documents. Combined value exceeds $65 million. The shell company network unraveled completely. Gregory Lang was arrested in his Cheyenne office, still wearing his expensive suit. Bank records showed payments to at least 5 other law enforcement officials across the region. Deputy Carter, facing life in prison, flipped immediately and provided testimony that revealed a corruption ring operating for nearly a decade, with Lauren Brooks as one of the masterminds. The media storm was overwhelming. CNN, Fox News, every major network picked up the story. Largest elder fraud serial murder case in regional history became the headline that followed me everywhere. Reporters camped outside the ranch for weeks. But I had nothing more to say than what was already on that live stream. Families of the victims began reaching out within days. Margaret Ellison's children from Cody, the Thompson family from western Colorado, the Kowalski estate from South Dakota. 12 families who had lost parents and grandparents to Lauren's greed, finally getting answers about deaths they never quite believed were accidental. The legal machinery moved swiftly. Lauren was denied bail after prosecutors proved she was an extreme flight risk with access to offshore accounts. The competency hearing threats evaporated overnight, along with every forged document she had created. Caleb filed for divorce the day after Lauren's arrest and moved back to the ranch that same week. We didn't talk much about it at first, but I could see the relief in his eyes every morning when he woke up in his childhood bedroom. I should have seen it, he said one evening on the porch. All those years, all the signs I ignored. She fooled a lot of people, son. I told him. That's what made her dangerous. 6 months later, spring arrived gentle and warm. Cottonwoods leafing out along the creek and calves kicking up their heels in the pastures. Lauren Brooks received life without parole after testifying against her entire network to avoid a possible death sentence. Watching her in that orange jumpsuit, stripped of designer clothes and confidence, I felt an unexpected flicker of pity. She had thrown away everything for money she would never live to spend. 5 corrupt officers received sentences of 15 to 30 years. All shell company assets were seized and liquidated for victim restitution. The Vincent Ranch was declared completely secure. Every fraudulent claim dismissed forever. Caleb threw himself into ranch work with the dedication of a man making up for lost time. Every morning before dawn, he checked cattle, mended fences, learned operations he had ignored during his marriage. I forgot how much I loved this place, he said one evening watching sunset behind the snowy range. Lauren made me feel like it was a burden. But this is the better life. Isn't it? Jasper returned to college with new purpose, changed his major to criminal justice, determined to continue Emily's mission of protecting those who can't protect themselves. I started wearing my dark brown Stetson again. For months after the trial, I couldn't bring myself to put it on. But one May morning, I realized fear was just another way of letting Lauren win. Now I wear it with pride, a symbol of survival rather than vulnerability. Other elderly ranchers began asking my advice about protecting themselves. I helped 4 neighbors review suspicious documents, and we started an informal network checking on each other regularly. Emily Harper was honored with a memorial scholarship at the community college for criminal justice students. Her sacrifice would protect others for generations. Sunday dinners became peaceful again. 3 generations of Vincent men sharing stories, planning improvements, enjoying family without hidden agendas or legal threats. Caleb's divorce finalized with almost no drama since Lauren's conviction voided any marital claims. Media attention finally died down, though I still get the occasional interview request. I politely decline, preferring the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived to fleeting fame. As I sit on my porch, watching the Wyoming light fade behind the mountains, I reflect on everything that happened. Patience outlasted aggression. Wisdom defeated manipulation. Family bonds tested by betrayal were strengthened by crisis and proved stronger than any forged paper. At 65, I discovered being underestimated can be the greatest advantage of all. They saw my age and assumed weakness, never recognizing the strength that comes from decades of facing hardship and learning from mistakes. They mistook quiet demeanor for confusion, trust for gullibility, kindness for foolishness. They were wrong about every single thing. The Vincent Ranch will continue for another generation, maybe more. Caleb talks about sustainable practices and improvements. Jasper speaks of returning after graduation to help modernize while preserving tradition. The greatest battles are won not by the loudest voice, but by the wisest heart. Age is not about what you've lost, but what you've gained. What would you have done in my boots? Let me know in the comments below. Looking back, I realize God works in mysterious ways. When that phone rang at 5:45 that winter morning, I could never have imagined it would lead to exposing a network of killers preying on elderly folks for years. But the Lord has a way of using ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And I'm grateful He chose an old Wyoming rancher like me to help bring justice. If you're watching this and thinking about your own family situation, let me give you some advice. Don't be like I was. Don't sign papers without reading every word, no matter who's asking. Don't assume family members always have your best interests at heart. And most importantly, don't let anyone convince you that your age makes you weak or incompetent. God gave us years of experience for a reason, and that wisdom is our greatest weapon against those who would take advantage of us. This story taught me that patience really does outlast aggression. When Lauren and her lawyers tried to intimidate me with legal threats, I could have panicked or given up. Instead, I trusted in the Lord's timing and my grandson's love. Sometimes the best thing you can do is listen to the people who truly care about you, even when their warnings don't make sense at first. Evil exists in this world, often wearing a familiar face and speaking with a trusted voice. But good people still outnumber the bad, and the truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. The key is never giving up, even when the odds seem impossible. To all the grandparents out there sharing your own stories, your voice matters, your wisdom matters. Your life experience is valuable, not something to be dismissed or stolen. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they refuse to give up. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my situation? Your stories inspire others to stay strong and fight for what's right.